Okay, so let's talk about some real life examples of substitution and alkyl halides giving you problems on a daily basis. So first off, we went through this whole video lecture series talking about alkyl halides. So there has to be a reason that alkyl halides are so important. Well, one of those reasons we found out was that halides are very good leaving groups. And those halogenated organics can kick off the bromines or the chlorines fairly easy and bring in an incoming nucleophile. And they were at the bottom of the list. So all of these other nucleophiles that we want to bring into the pictures, whatever they might be, like the alcohol groups or the ether groups or the thiol groups or the carbonyl groups, they're going to take basically the place of the halogen. The thing that you have to keep in mind, though, is that this is only one version of some reactions that can be followed through with the halogenated organics. There are many others, but the only thing that we've talked about so far is substitution. Okay, another common thing, the reason that we're choosing alkyl halides most of the time, is because alkyl halides are very common. They're very cheap, and they do show up in Mother Nature and in byproducts and in many other things in organic chemistry that we typically study and that we typically see. Not only that, but they are man-made as well. So we have some halogenated organics that we love to go into the lab and make them, and we realize that these halogenated compounds can do a couple of things for us. And that's where DDT is going to come into the play. So, this is an advertisement back in the early 1930s, where we were promoting a compound known as DDT to the public. And if you take a look at the advertisement, you see this wonderful, happy little girl here in her apron, like a woman should be, in the kitchen in the 1930s, right? Women's place is in the kitchen. It shouldn't be anywhere else. It shouldn't be in the laboratory. It shouldn't be working. You should have a blue polka dot dress and a contrasting apron in the kitchen making a cake. Okay, so that gives you an insight of the mentality during this time. And then around this beautiful tan, brown-headed working, well, not working, but housewife homemaker, you see a wonderful, happy little apple tree and a yippity-yappity dog that maybe she has to take care of too. And then you see a nice little cow with a cowbell, not knowing that it's getting ready to go to the slaughter. And then you see what looks like a hope is a potato with some kind of Superman apron. And then finally some kind of chicken over here. And they're all happy, and it kind of like a Snow White, Cinderella type of fairy tale where they're on a stage and there's lights on them and they're basically singing and dancing. DDT is good for me. Okay, well, during that time, DDT might be good for them. And what DDT was, it was a pesticide. So hence, that's why we see happy apples. Spray DDT on me, please, and that will drive away all of the bugs. And then we see happy cows, because if we can drive away some of the insects, then we can have a healthy produce, and the healthy produce means good things for your animal livestock as well. So hence, there's the cow, and there's the chicken, and they're happy because DDT is sprayed all over the place as well. Well, if that's a potato, then that potato's happy because it doesn't have to worry about any bugs either. It's kind of like a natural insect repellent. So we go to the store and buy off and spray it on ourselves to drive away the mosquitoes. Then why couldn't we have something like that as far as our produce and our food stuff is concerned? That way we can just spray it all over the place and end up with a insect-free crop. Okay, so DDT is good for me. Well, it was. It was good for you in the early 1900s. However, what we see now is something that's a little bit different. And that something is now known as a banned DDT happened in the late 1900s. We're talking about the 1970s here. And during the 1970s, DDT was banned. So this is the molecule for DDT. And if you take a look at DDT in Wikipedia or in the Merck or the CRC, DDT basically stands for dichloro. So we see a chloro group here and a chloro group there. Diphenyl, which the phenyl is representing the benzene ring. So one here and one there. Trichloro, so 1, 2, 3 chloro, ethane. And that's because it's a 2-carbon chain. 1 carbon here and 1 carbon there. So D stands for dichloro, D stands for diphenyl, and T stands for trichloro. So this is a common insecticide that was used, again, back in the early 1900s. We sprayed it on all of our crops, and we thought that DDT was perfectly fine. The reason is because DDT did not show any affinity to us. It only showed affinity to the insects that were involved. So it was killing insects off left and right. But to us, it seemed pretty harmless. There wasn't really anything dangerous that we saw in the beginning that it was doing. However, along the course of the way in the 1960s, we get a book. And that book was called Silent Spring. And Silent Spring was written by an author named Rachel Carson. And what Silent Spring went through is this whole idea of DDT being sprayed all over the place. And even though it didn't really have an affiliation with us, it did have an affiliation with certain animal species. And these are things like fish. So what was happening is that fish were swimming around in DDT tainted waters. And it might not have affected them, it might not kill them like it would do the insects, but this is a organic molecule. And that organic molecule is not aqueous. So animal products or animals would drink it. What would happen is that it would go into their system. It would not pass through their system because DDT is stored in the fatty tissues. Not only that, but this is a stable compound. Pretty much stable. We see some delocalization with the benzenes. We see some halogens on it. So we could see maybe some substitution reactions that could take place. But because it was stored in the fatty tissues, this begins to accumulate over the course of time. And what happens is that we eat those fish. And then when we eat the fish, we eat their tissue. And then we ingest the DDT, and it gets into our fatty tissues, and it begins to get stored. And it's not uncommon for us to have very low levels of DDT in our system because of that reason. That was something that wasn't thought of back into the 1930s. This organic molecule, it's not really going to do us any harm. It has no affiliation with us. We'll spray it over everything that we can. Well, we eat the fruits and the vegetables, that's fine. That's not going to be an issue. But what we didn't really understand is that other things eat the fruits and the veggies as well and ingest the DDT, and we eat those animal products, and now we have DDT built up in our system. So finally, in about the 1970s, DDT was banned from the United States. No longer can we use DDT anymore because now we understand that this accumulation was building up in our systems. We didn't really fully understand what DDT was capable of in the beginning, and maybe we can slightly become poisoned with the use of DDT and other insecticides like DDT that might come along as well. 2004, the Stockholm Convention banned the worldwide use of DDT finally, so now not only in the United States but worldwide, they should not be using DDT in their products. Except for the control of malaria. That's really one of the exceptions that we do have. It does have a tendency to drive off those mosquitoes, and if we can drive those mosquitoes off, then we can slow down or maybe prevent the spread of malaria in some of these third world countries. But again, it's in limited use. So one of those ways, one of those instances where someone like the FDA allowed something to go through, doesn't really pay attention to it, doesn't really understand the full complications of it, and now this halogenated organic molecule stabilized by delocalization can cause us an issue. So if you want to know more about DD&T, or Silent Spring, the book, I would suggest you look it up, do a little bit of research. There's other compounds just like this one that do a number of similar things.